This is just perfect to keep his eyes on me alone, Kasia muttered, giving one last glance at her reflection before exiting the room with a small package in her hands, a birthday present for the man she had loved for 5 years and still loved deeply. It was her boyfriend's birthday. And guess who was the last person to find out he was celebrating it? Kasia. The one who considered herself his girlfriend. If she hadn't overheard his coworkers talking about it when she visited him earlier that morning, she would have believed he wasn't celebrating at all. But as she arrived at the party and stood in the doorway watching, she saw that the party had already begun without her. She felt like an intruder, invisible to everyone there. The room buzzed with laughter and chatter. Darvan's friends were so engrossed in their conversations that no one even glanced her way. This wasn't the first time she felt overlooked. She remembered the company outings where Darvan had invited her to tag along, only for her to be ignored, or invisible, just like now. Her mind wandered back to those times she'd awkwardly lingered on the sidelines, trying to laugh along even though she didn't feel included. Every time, she told herself it didn't matter, hoping that with enough effort, she'd eventually fit in with people who barely noticed her. She walked further into the party, placing her gift in a corner before searching for Darvan. But he was nowhere in sight. After looking around for a while, she decided to call him to check his whereabouts. She clutched her phone tightly as she watched it ring for the 4th time, but the line went unanswered. Countless missed calls and unread messages had gone by without a single reply from him. Suddenly, panic surged through her. What if something had happened to him? She'd been trying his numbers multiple times yet he wouldn't pick or reply. She tried calling again, but a voice interrupted her thoughts. She lowered her phone and looked up to see a familiar face giving her a small smile. She recognized him. She'd met him once with Darvan when she delivered some forgotten documents to his office. "You're Darvan's girlfriend, aren't you?" he asked, and she nodded slowly with a tight smile. "Why are you here alone?" "It's his party and he's nowhere around." "Did something happen?" the person asked, and she smiled awkwardly, trying to steady her voice, but it still trembled. "And maybe something urgent came up." "He's probably on his way," she stammered, laughing awkwardly. Despite her attempt to sound calm, she couldn't shake the growing worry about Darvan as she clutched her bag tightly. "Maybe. So you don't actually know where he is?" The guest raised an eyebrow, looking slightly concerned. Why even bother asking her? Someone scoffed loudly, drawing others' attention as he approached them. It was one of Darvan's friends, Mark. Oh, great. He was here to ruin her night, as always. She wouldn't know anything about his plans. "Is she even sure she's dating him?" he said with a smile before turning to the guest. "Oh, sorry, Mr. Ashford. Darvan will be here soon. He just went to pick up a friend to join the party." Mr. Ashford glanced briefly at Kasia but said nothing as he walked away. A wave of embarrassment washed over her, coupled with a sense of humiliation. She bit her lips firmly. It hurt. It hurt that, as his supposed girlfriend, she seemed so distant from his affairs, his life. It was disheartening that she didn't even have a clue about his whereabouts. Had she been dating the ghost of him all these years? Her eyes itched with tears, but she blinked them back, trying to be strong. Finally, the huge doors swung open, and Darvan stepped in. Her lips immediately curved into a small smile when she saw him, looking as good as ever in the tailored charcoal gray suit she had prepared for him. It fit perfectly, accentuating his strong frame. "He's here," she muttered to herself as she started toward the door, eager to ask why he was late. But her steps faltered, and her smile faded when Darvan fully stepped in with his arm wrapped around another woman's waist. Kasia blinked rapidly, her smile slowly vanishing as confusion consumed her. She didn't recognize this woman. Darvan's friends bumped into her as they rushed over to greet the stranger, fawning over her as if she was the one in a relationship with Darvan. They seemed to be enjoying themselves, acting like true friends to this woman, something they had never done with her in her 5 years of dating Darvan. Darvan, too, didn't bother to look her way or compliment her on how beautiful she looked, even though she had dressed so well just for him. "I've missed you madly, Stacy," one of Darvan's friends said, hugging the woman tightly. Kasia furrowed her brows as the name rang a bell. When recognition hit her, her eyes widened. It was her. Darvan's first love, the one she had always felt she was competing against for Darvan's heart. She had often heard Darvan's friends mention Stacy, saying that if she hadn't gone abroad for treatment, she wouldn't have stood a chance. They always commented on how Darvan and Stacy made the perfect match. Now that she was back, Kasia knew things would never be the same. She watched as his friends greeted the woman with wide smiles, one of them even raising a glass in her honor. Their eyes sparkled with genuine warmth, voices filled with familiarity and affection. The night should have been a celebration of love. She spent several weeks hand-stitching a tie for him, with a small deer embroidered on it. It was a symbol of their most cherished memory. When she handed the tie to Darvan, she eagerly hoped that he would notice the hidden design and appreciate the effort she had put into making it. "Happy birthday," she said softly, trying to keep her voice steady as she forced a small smile. But to her surprise, he barely glanced at it before setting it aside, his attention shifting immediately back to Stacy, the woman beside him. Kasia felt heartbroken. She spent a long time making the tie, from brainstorming and designing to stitching it together, imagining countless times the look of surprise and happiness on Darvan's face when he saw it. But now, it was carelessly tossed aside. "I also prepared a birthday gift for you, baby," Stacy chimed, revealing a sparkling little gift box. "Look at your tie, it's old, and it's not even a brand name. Do you really go out like this every day, darling? People will laugh at you." Stacy glanced disdainfully at Kasia. "I had a friend buy this tie for you at an auction. It was designed by the world-renowned designer Alara Voss. Her tie is the one that matches your outfit today," she chuckled while Kasia took a slow, deep breath, trying to stay calm. Kasia felt embarrassed and turned her gaze toward Darvan, hoping he would refute Stacy's words, because the tie he was wearing was the one she had made for him. However, Darvan's eyes widened in surprise as he looked at the tie, rendered speechless. "Stacy, how did you know?" "Oh, this is too beautiful," Darvan said, his voice filled with gratitude as he opened the package, revealing Alara Voss' work. His friends gathered around, exclaiming, "Oh my God! I never thought I'd get to see Master Alara Voss work." As he accepted it, his eyes lit up with a joy she hadn't seen in a long time. She watched as he kissed Stacy on the cheek, with heartfelt gratitude, the two of them sharing a moment she'd always wished to have with him. Kissing a friend on the cheek didn't count as anything, or so she wanted to believe. But her eyes nearly popped when Stacy didn't let go of Darvan. Instead, she wrapped her hands around his neck, leaning in to kiss his lips. The crowd began cheering, as if they had always been a couple, completely disregarding Kasia's feelings. Even those who knew she was dating Darvan got caught up in the excitement, cheering for Darvan and Stacy. At that moment, Stacy looked up at Kasia, a smug expression on her face. Her grip tightened, her heart breaking as tears gathered in her eyes. She looked at Darvan with hope, wishing he would explain to her why Stacy did that. But Darvan said nothing, not even glancing at her. She staggered back, feeling anger she could no longer hold. "Darvan, what the hell do you think you're doing?" she snapped. "How can you just do this in front of me, in front of all these people?" He glanced at her, looking unbothered. "Don't you understand yet? This is Stacy." He paused briefly, then continued, "You know, the one I've always loved." He smiled at Stacy. He left Stacy's side and closed the gap between himself and Kasia. His hands went to her cheeks, gently lifting her gaze to meet his. "What about me? What am I? What does the 5 years we've spent together mean?" Kasia asked in disbelief. "Honestly, I never loved you the way you thought I did. Have you forgotten?" he asked, a smirk forming at the corner of his lips. "I dated you because you really take care of me better than a housekeeper, and to be honest, we are just in a physical relationship. I never truly loved you, Kasia. Stacy is the only woman I've ever loved, and..." The rest of his words became distant like echoes as her mind spun, struggling to grasp what was happening. She placed her hands over her ears, trying to block out the whispers and gossip of the guests. Was this really happening? After 5 years of being by his side? After everything she had done for him? Past memories started rushing back into her head. The numerous nights she had stayed up waiting for him, tending to him when he was too tired from work. How she had silently stood by him enduring his coldness, believing that one day he would open his heart. She had cooked for him, cleaned for him, distanced herself from her friends, all in the hope that her sacrifices would one day mean something. She loved Darvan too much to let him go, so despite the repeated arguments and cold wars, she always chose to swallow her pride and return to his side. But now it was all meaningless. And as if the humiliation wasn't enough, he told her to her face that he had never truly loved her. How blind she had been. Or rather, she had chosen to be blind. It was clear from the start that he had never loved her. His actions had said it all, but she had refused to see. She clenched her fists tightly, tears streaming down her cheeks. In anger, she picked up the gift from the table, hurling it at Darvan's chest with all the strength she could muster. She wiped away the tears she hadn't even realized were streaming down her cheeks. She needed to hold on to whatever dignity she had left. She wasn't going to let him dump her, she would dump him. Even though she knew it wouldn't hurt him, given his status and power, it didn't matter. She needed to reclaim her power, even if it was just for herself. "We're done," she shouted, and without waiting for a response, ran out in tears. Her friends chased after her, but neither Darvan nor his friends seemed to care. They considered her anger insignificant. She had always been cautious around Darvan, never getting upset no matter how much they teased her. She had tried so hard to fit in, always smiling through the humiliation hoping to win their approval. They mocked her for not being as confident or outgoing as Stacy. She would apologize for her awkwardness, always trying to act more sophisticated, arranging expensive dinners and outings in an attempt to impress them. But they saw her efforts as desperate, her desire to belong making her an easy target for their ridicule. "Just watch, breaking up with her won't be that easy. She'll come crawling back in a couple of days," Mark, Darvan's friend, said with a grin. Darvan sneered. "Let her go. Let's just keep partying." He and Stacy, along with his friends, decided to celebrate Stacy's return instead. After leaving the party, Kasha headed home, desperate to clear her mind. But no matter how hard she tried, her thoughts kept haunting her. She got up, packed a few clothes into a bag, and left the house. She didn't bother with the expensive clothes or accessories she'd once worn to impress Darvan, who had often criticized her for not being fashionable enough when she wore her glasses. "Kiara, can you take me somewhere?" Kasha asked her friends, who had come by, likely to check on her after the birthday incident. "Where?" Kiara asked, but Kasha just inhaled deeply. "But what on earth just happened?" Kiara asked, now clearly upset by how Darvan had treated Kasha at the party. "It's fine. I already ended things with him," Kasha muttered. Her friends exchanged skeptical looks knowing she'd go back to Darvan again. She always did. "Are you sure it's really over this time?" Quinn asked, but Kasha didn't respond. "Are you taking me or not?" Kasha asked, getting more angry. "Why take it out on us?" Quinn muttered, opening the car door for her. Kasha sighed as she lay on the bed, having just arrived at the hotel where she planned to stay temporarily to clear her head. After eating, she took a bath and went to get her nightwear when her eyes fell on a framed photo of her and Darvan. She froze, staring at it. She tried to push the memories away, hoping she could overcome the pain, but it all came flooding back. The hurt was fresh, sharper than she had anticipated. She had thought she could pretend everything was fine, but no, it hurt. It hurt so much that the room suddenly felt suffocating. He had been the man she loved, the one she had devoted herself to. Why did he humiliate her like that in front of everyone? As her tears fell, her eyes stumbled on a design. One of her old sketches stood there, staring at her. It was a design she dreamed of years before she met him, a time when her art had been the center of her world. She touched the drawing gently, feeling the faint echoes of that confident girl, the one who'd had hopes and dreams. "Why? Why did you choose to treat me this way, Darvan?" she cried. It wasn't just what he did that tore her apart. The fact that she had been so blindly in love, giving up her career just to be by his side. Was this all she deserved? Her thoughts drifted back to her past, where she had been humble, neglected, and unappreciated, yet still foolishly and deeply in love with him. A love that had never truly been hers. "Sia," Darvan called as he slowly sat upright, his head pounding with a headache. He found himself sprawled on the sofa, still in yesterday's clothes and without a blanket. His head spun and he felt the chill creeping in, like he might catch a cold. "Why didn't she help me change?" he groaned, holding his head with one hand as he struggled to stand. "Kasha," he called again, this time using her full name as he rose from the couch craving some congee. He expected Kasha to appear with a bowl like she always did when he had a hangover. For a moment, he forgot about the pain in his head as the housekeeper approached, a bowl in her hands. His brows furrowed. She set the bowl in front of him, and he noticed it was seafood congee, his favorite after a night of drinking. "Why are you bringing me food?" he asked, his gaze shifting from the bowl to the housekeeper. "Where's Kasha?" he questioned, but she said nothing, clearly unaware of Kasha's whereabouts. Even she had been surprised not to find Kasha busy in the kitchen as usual. Darvan ignored her and took a sip of the congee, expecting it to be just like Kasha's. But as soon as the taste hit his tongue, disappointment set in. It wasn't the same. He spat it out immediately and wiped his mouth with a tissue. "Who made this?" he demanded, his tone sharp. "You made this while Kasha's home?" His anger was rising. He crumpled the tissue and threw it aside as he stood abruptly. "Kasha," he shouted, ignoring the pounding in his head. "She's not home, sir," the housekeeper replied. "Not home? What do you mean?" he snapped, but before she could answer, the events of the previous night came flooding back, making his head spin once more. He cursed himself silently for drinking so much. He remembered now. She had left the party after declaring it was over between them. What shocked him was that she hadn't come home yet. She wasn't the type to go even 3 hours without seeing or talking to him. So how could she still not be home? He slumped back onto the couch and dismissed the housekeeper with a wave of his hand. As he began to drink the congee, it felt like a struggle, each sip was forced. Mentally, he cursed Kasha for not being there with him. Kasha's congee was unmatched, the best he'd ever tasted. She had learned the recipe from a nutritionist specifically for him, a skill even the housekeeper couldn't replicate. Is she really not home? He wondered again, glancing toward the bedroom. Or is she just avoiding me because of what I said? His eyes remained fixed on the direction of their room, hoping she would emerge from hiding and make him the congee he craved. But something felt off. Unease growing, Darvan made his way to the bedroom door, which was slightly opened. Inside he noticed that a few of her things were missing. Her luggage was gone. A cold shiver ran down his spine as he stared at the empty spaces. She had really left. She had abandoned him. He blinked rapidly, struggling to accept the reality. She wouldn't have left. She was just being dramatic, right? She couldn't have actually walked out on him. Not really. She'd come back, she always did. He laughed it off, but a creeping doubt began to settle in. Lying on the bed, memories of Kasha flooded his mind. She used to fuss over him, making sure he ate well, even after their worst arguments. Now, the silence was unbearable. The bed felt cold and unfamiliar without her. He closed his eyes, trying to shake off the thoughts. This time wouldn't be any different from the others. She was just throwing a tantrum, but she'd be back. She always was. It had been the same when she found out he'd asked her to grow her hair long because Stacy had long hair. The same when he pressured her into dressing like Stacy, wanting her to be everything Stacy was. Even though Kasha hated it, she'd screamed, thrown fits, but in the end, she stayed. She always forgave him. And she always took care of him afterward. He was sure this time would be no different. "I'll wait for you to come beg me on your knees," he chuckled to himself as he shifted on the bed, completely confident she'd return. The next morning, Kasha decided to make a change, starting with herself. She went to the mall and took her time to buy plain but comfortable clothes, which was very different from the attractive stylish dresses she had been wearing just to impress him. She looked at a beautiful, soft cotton dress, and, lifting the cloth to her cheek, felt the delight of actually being able to decide on her own. Then she proceeded to the salon. For as long as most of the attendees could remember, she had always had long, straight, and shiny hair. It was her pride and joy, flowing in soft waves down her back. She bought expensive oils, carefully combed it every night and tied it up in delicate scarves to protect it while she slept. She had done it all because he loved it. She overheard him once, casually telling a friend how his first love had long hair, and that was why he preferred it. That revelation stung her deeply. She wanted to cut it all off in that moment, but the fear of displeasing him had always held her back. But today was different. When she sat on the salon chair, she looked at herself in the mirror and touched the tips of hair with her fingers. "Trim it," she told the stylist, holding his gaze. "Cut it short, into a bob." The stylist blinked a little and then gave her head a quick, affirmative jerk. With each cutting movement the scissors made, with each inch that she lost, she felt lighter. She looked as each strand of her hair, thick and gorgeous, fell down the floor in a heap. It was a bold change. Done. You look even prettier with short hair, the stylist complimented, and Kasia offered a soft smile, admiring how the chic bob framed her face perfectly. When the transformation was complete, she looked at her reflection, almost not recognizing the confident woman staring back. It was now neatly chopped, and her jaw, which were previously softened by the feathered cut, had sharp lines added to it. For the first time in years she felt at ease. She felt like she was being herself. After leaving the salon, she took out her phone, her fingers hesitating over the screen. With a few quick taps, she blocked Darvan's number, ensuring he wouldn't be able to reach her through calls or texts. She also blocked the numbers of his friends, who always checked in on her to keep tabs. She had been on call for him day and night, always available whenever he needed something, always waiting for a text that half the time never came. She logged into her social media account, making sure to block each and every one of them, leaving no traces behind. No more being on standby for him, no more rushing to his side at the snap of his fingers. The freedom washed over her like a breath of fresh air. She wouldn't have to deal with the discomfort of always tying her hair up in ponytails, the way it trailed behind her like a ghost whenever she ran. She had hated that feeling. But now she felt relaxed. She had made her decision. She was letting go, not holding back anymore. As she left the mall, a shopping bag in hand, she stopped by Kiara, her friend's house. There, she met her with Quinn, another friend of theirs, busy in the kitchen. They were stunned about her sudden transformation. "No way, girl," Quinn exclaimed as she took in the new hairstyle. "I didn't think you'd ever cut your hair." "He loved it long, didn't he?" Kiara asked, her eyes widening in shock. She smiled, running a hand through her short hair. "Yeah, well, I'm done living by his rules. It's my hair. I'm not going to keep it long just because his first love did." Quinn hesitated, then leaned in, lowering her voice. "So, are you guys going to, work things out? Get back together?" She let out a dry laugh, shaking her head. "Not a chance. I've wasted enough of my time being someone he wanted. I'm done with that. I'm not going back." Her friends exchanged glances but didn't argue. They knew her well enough but couldn't figure out if she could really do that. "All good, I'm hungry," she said, yawning softly as her friends nodded and made their way to the kitchen. Kasia decided to head back to the hotel after spending time with her friends. As she walked through the busy city, memories of her past filled her mind, starting from her university days studying fashion design to winning the Best Newcomer award at the prestigious Global Trendsetters Showdown Designers competition. Her future had always been bright back then. Her creations had been sold at highly escalated prices, attracting offers from well-known brands which were willing to employ her after she left school. And even the famous designer Liam Amsterdam had wanted to mentor her, offering to introduce her to the design scene in Paris. It had been a dream come true. But she had given it all up for Darvan. The day he decided they should date, she had been torn between him and her dream. In the end, she had chosen him, foolishly sacrificing her ambitions just to be with him. Now the weight of that choice felt heavier than ever. As she walked, the pain in her heart grew. She overheard people discussing Liam's latest exhibition and her steps faltered. For a moment, hope flickered. Maybe, just maybe, she could get her back, the side of herself that seemed to have vanished. The part that loved design, that wasn't defined by Darvan. But then she remembered the unresolved issues with Liam due to the conflict from when she had chosen Darvan over her studies. The embarrassment of that decision still haunted her, making it difficult to reach out directly. Yet deep down she knew she could not afford not to see Liam's exhibition. At the gallery, Kasia's heart nearly stopped when she saw one of her own works on display. It was her graduation project, proudly showcased under the label Remilux. She stood frozen, her breath catching in her throat as she overheard Liam discussing the piece with visitors. His words were filled with both admiration and regret, lamenting how she had abandoned her dream for a man. Her eyes stung with unshed tears. Some visitors who were familiar with the fashion world spoke up. They began to discuss how Remilux had once emerged on the market and then disappeared out of the blue. Her few works had been quickly snatched up and auctioned, leaving people wondering why such a promising talent had vanished. "Oh, what a shame," one visitor sighed as he shook his head. "We lost a gifted designer." Kasha's tears fell, warm against her cheeks as she bit her lip, shame and regret crashing over her. She couldn't face Liam, not like this. Not yet. Overwhelmed, she turned and hurried out of the gallery before he could see her. "I'm sorry, Liam," she muttered through her tears as she disappeared into the crowd. Just then Liam glanced back, catching a fleeting glimpse of someone leaving. Someone who looked like Kasha. A wave of nostalgia washed over him, but by the time he realized, she was already gone. As Kasha ran, she collided with someone. Just as she was about to apologize, the sound of her name being called made her look up, and her eyes widened in shock. "Samantha!" Kasha called, shocked. Samantha had been a colleague from college, someone in the design world as well. She had always been a thorn in Kasha's side, calling her poor and old-fashioned, insisting she didn't deserve Darvan. Perhaps she was right, given the situation. "Seeing you here," Samantha began, staring at Liam's gallery. "Did you have a fight with Darvan? Did you two finally break up?" she asked. Kasha smiled and nodded. "Yeah, you can now go to the son of a BTCH you've been wanting to get since college," Kasha replied, leaving the place without looking back. Did she just talk back to me? Samantha wondered, confused as she stared in the direction Kasha had taken. As the place boomed with loud music and people danced to every beat, Darvan sat next to Stacy, who was busy talking without a care. She kept going on about Kasha and Darvan's breakup, and how she and Darvan had officially become a couple. This party wasn't just to celebrate her return, but also to mark their reunion. Congratulations poured in like raindrops as Stacy remained the center of attention. Darvan simply sat there, swirling a glass of champagne between his fingers, feeling distant. His thoughts drifted to Kasha. It had been days since he'd last heard from her, and for the first time, she hadn't reached out either. The longest she'd ever gone without contacting him was 3 days, but she had always been the one to give in first. Now, though, it had been a week, and Kasha still hadn't reached out. He decided to brush the thought aside, convincing himself that maybe she just hadn't found the right moment to call. As the loud chatter continued, plates of beef bourguignon were placed in front of them, and everyone began eating while still talking. "This is good, but trust me, it doesn't quite measure up to hers," Justin said, taking another bite and drawing Darvan's attention. "Whose dish?" Stacy, who loved this particular meal, asked, staring at the rest of the men. "Kasha's. Even Darvan won't deny she was one hell of a great cook. One of the reasons we kept her around," Justin laughed, while Stacy turned to Darvan. "Why don't you call Kasha then? Ask her for the recipe so I can cook an even more delicious beef bourguignon for you," she teased. The others quickly joined in, egging him on to make the call. He inhaled deeply, his mind drifting back to the past when Kasha would invite him and his friends over for meals, believing that hosting them was a way to become a part of his life and show how close they were. However, Darvan and his friends had always taken her efforts for granted, often criticizing her cooking. He remembered one particular time when he made her cook a dish 7 times just to watch her struggle for fun. Yet Kasha never complained. A smirk tugged at the corner of his lips as he thought this could be an opportunity to hint to Kasha that she could come back and reconcile with him. He picked up his phone and reluctantly dialed her number, but it bounced back. He narrowed his brows, noticing she had blocked him. "Is everything all right?" Frederick and Mark asked in unison, noticing the confused expression on Darvan's face. "Try calling her from your phone," Darvan said. Frederick took out his phone to make the call, but he quickly found he was blocked too. Justin and Mark tried the same, only to discover they had also been blocked. Every one of them. "Is she for real?" Mark laughed, finding the situation amusing. "Why go to such an extreme when she'll end up begging and crying anyway?" Justin scoffed loudly. "Since she wants to play that game, let's see who regrets it in the end," Darvan muttered, his grip tightening around his phone as he tapped her contact and blocked her number in return. She was playing a game she was bound to lose, he thought. But he was determined. Even if she came begging on her knees, it would be too late. He wouldn't take her back. His fist clenched tightly, his jaw tensing as anger surged through him. The tension in his face was evident to everyone around, including Stacy. "I know a Michelin-starred chef who could make something far better than Kasha's cheap, basic cooking," Stacy said, trying to lighten the mood. "Her dishes probably wouldn't even qualify as second-rate, disgusting and flavorless," she added with disdain. Sure, maybe we should invite the chef some other day. That way Stacy can learn from him. Mark laughed awkwardly, attempting to ease the tension, but it did little to calm Darvan. Kasia slumped heavily onto the couch, kicking off her heels and tossing her handbag aside. She had just returned from the exhibition hosted by Liam. It had taken her a lot of effort to finally attend, and though she was glad she had, she'd made sure he didn't see her. Don't you think you've been visiting us more often lately, Sia? Quinn asked as she sat next to her. Something you never did when you were dating Darvan, Kiara added, leaning against the wall a few meters away. I remember begging you to come, but no, you always chose Darvan over me. Kiara's teasing tone earned an eye roll from Kasia. Kiara and Quinn were her closest friends, having shared a dorm in college, which had brought them together. Quinn, an heiress to a conglomerate, had left home because her parents forced her into a business life she didn't want. She wanted freedom. Kiara, on the other hand, was the daughter of a well-known business tycoon. That's in the past, okay? Can you stop bringing it up? Kasia replied, sitting upright while her friends exchanged suspicious looks. Don't tell me you're regretting walking away from Darvan, Quinn asked with raised eyebrows, causing Kasia to frown and shot her a glare. Stop saying that. It's making me angry, she muttered, rolling her eyes. Even hearing his name makes my stomach turn. Her friends stifled their laughter. Was Kasia really being honest? So, what brought our baby here? Quinn finally asked, resting her head on Kasia's shoulder. I finally gathered the courage to visit Liam's gallery today after overhearing people talk about his new exhibition last week, Kasia began. Wait. Liam? Kiara interrupted. Isn't he the guy who offered you a job and promised to help you become the best designer? She asked, her memory suddenly kicking in. And didn't you say he offered to take you to Paris too? Quinn asked, lifting her head from Kasia's shoulder to look at her. Yeah, you're both right, Kasia replied with a nervous laugh. And you threw those chances away because of Darvan. Wow, girl, I have to applaud your stupidity, Kiara teased, clapping briefly. Funny how I tried to talk you out of it, but you said I had bad breath and you couldn't listen to me, she added sarcastically, making Kasia frown in frustration. She regretted the naive decisions she'd made in the past. That's why I'm here, okay? I feel guilty for disappointing him. Besides you and Quinn, he's the only man who ever supported my dreams and career, she muttered. I visited his gallery the other time and realized he had some of the works I did some time back. So I came here to ask if it is even okay for me to reconnect with him since we have not been talking for so long because of what happened, she said, glancing between her friends, who were now searching for the right advice. Since you've decided to walk this new path, then why not turn to Darvan for help? His family has connections and it could. I don't want anything to do with Darvan. She rose from the chair, her face slightly red in anger. Gosh, I was just teasing you, okay? Kiara replied, raising up her hands in defense. Well, stop joking about it. I don't want anything to do with trash like him, Kasia retorted angrily, and Quinn tugged her down to the chair again. All right, she's sorry, Quinn muttered, stroking Kasia's hair soothingly. Why don't you try approaching Liam? He might even be happy to see you. You think? Kasia asked, a hint of hope in her voice. Quinn nodded. Definitely. But how do I face him? Kasia asked again, looking between her friends, as they paused, thinking hard about the best way to approach the situation. Guess who I saw? Kasia suddenly interrupted their thoughts. Who? Kiara and Quinn said in unison. Samantha. I mean, she was the last person I wanted to run into today, Kasia said. Don't tell me she's still on about that nonsense, saying you're too poor to deserve Darvan? Quinn asked. I hated her back then, Kiara added. Does she still call you Four Eyes and old-fashioned? Quinn asked. Hey, are you indirectly insulting me too? Kasia frowned. Just tell me how to approach Liam, Kasia cut in, clearly angry. It was morning, and Kasia had decided to visit Liam's exhibition after her friends encouraged her to see him. She prepared some homemade snacks as a gift and included a brooch she had designed before leaving her friend's place, where she'd spent the night. Upon getting to the gallery, she unexpectedly ran into Eric, Darvan's cousin, who was in the middle of trying to convince Liam to collaborate with their fashion brand. Kasia greeted Liam with a tight, strained smile before giving Eric a polite nod. Look who we have here, Eric said with a grin as his eyes scanned her outfit. She had changed. No more long unfashionable skirts, and she ditched the nerdy glasses. The skirt she wore now was shorter, more stylish. Trying to seduce Mr. Liam now that you've been dumped? What's your deal with rich men? Eric asked, crossing his arms. To his utter shock, Liam smiled at Kasha in a friendly manner before speaking to her. Brought me breakfast? Liam asked, eyeing the small box in her hands. Kasha nodded, smiling as she handed it to him. Still, the last thing she had expected was him to be as composed as he was when he first looked at her. She had expected him to be colder or indifferent. If you don't mind, Mr. Sinclair, I need to talk to my guest, Liam said, taking Kasha's hand and leading her away, leaving Eric awkwardly standing behind. Look who we have here, Liam teased once they reached a quieter spot, causing Kasha to bite her lip awkwardly. How about we go somewhere quiet to talk? Liam suggested. Kasha nodded and they headed to a nearby cafe for a more relaxed conversation. Liam bought them drinks and he could not help but stare at Kasha, glad that she finally decided to contact him. She started, nervously rubbing her hands beneath the table, trying to muster the courage. I'm sorry for the past years. I'm sorry for abandoning my career when you cared the most, she muttered, her head bowed, unable to meet his eyes. It's a choice, Kasha. We all have our own paths. If the one you took doesn't feel right, you can always come back and start fresh. It's never too late. You were one of the best in your day, he praised her. She pressed her lips together, grateful that he wasn't scolding her as she had expected. If you don't mind, how about being my assistant for my upcoming projects? Liam asked casually and her eyes widened in surprise. There's no point in saying no, you're perfect for the job, he added. Kasha smiled shyly, relieved that after all these years, he still trusted her. Thank you so much, Liam, she said, bowing slightly in gratitude. She hadn't expected the conversation to go this smoothly. That aside, how have you been? He asked, and Kasha began to share some parts of her life, focusing on the more interesting aspects. As they continued talking and enjoying each other's company, Darvan and Stacy walked into the cafe. Stacy, who had been hoping to land a role in one of Liam's prestigious projects, had come to the cafe after not finding him at the exhibition. They decided to take a break there. The moment Darvan entered, his eyes locked on Kasha, who was sitting with Liam, laughing and having a good time. A deep frown creased his face as he watched them. Had she already moved on? Was Liam the reason she'd been distant? How long had they been dating? Was she seeing him while they were still together? His thoughts swirled with jealousy and anger, unable to shake the sudden wave of possessiveness that rushed over him. With a frown, he advanced towards their direction, balling his fingers tightly. Darvan scoffed, trying to push these feelings of jealousy he felt away as he approached Kasha. Every step he took towards her intensified his anger. She looked so happy with the guy she was talking to, and that made Darvan's blood boil. As he got to her, he squinted his eyes when he noticed her long shiny dark hair was gone. You've really downgraded yourself, haven't you? He said, making his presence known. Darvan's eyes then left Kasha to the man seating opposite her, which made him almost laugh in mockery as he turned to look at Kasha again. Did you find yourself a boyfriend already? Darvan asked again, his gaze going back to Liam, who didn't bother to look his way since it didn't concern him. He didn't want a situation whereby he'd interfere and Kasha mad at him, because he recognized this man. He was Kasha's boyfriend, but judging from the way Darvan spoke, Liam could guess they were no longer together. His taste must be just as terrible as yours. I mean, no man can settle for someone like you who looks like she's been living her whole life in a cave, he added harshly. Kasha's fingers tightened into a fist by her side, but she refused to react. Liam saw this and attempted to speak, but Kasha smiled at him, shaking her head, telling him not to. So, what were you on? She said, trying to act like Darvan wasn't there. Didn't know you became rude over just a few days. Stacy rolled her eyes while shaking her head in disgust as she glared at Kasha. Darvan let out a bitter grin when his eyes landed on the snacks lying down on the near table before them. Planning on going back to being someone's housekeeper? How very domestic of you, he said. Maybe that's all you're good for, but I applaud him, he's found himself a loyal dog. He added. Kasha folded her hands, trying to suppress her anger. She turned to him with a straight but dangerous glare. Just as she made to talk, Liam, who couldn't stand her get insulted, spoke up. Enough. You've said more than enough already. His voice was calm but firm. And who are you to interfere when I and my ex are in a conversation? Darvan moved closer to him and pulled him out of the seat. Liam smirked, yanking his hand away from Darvan's grip. So you're the lunatic who ruined a whole life and its career? Liam scoffed, pulling out his business card and throwing it in Darvan's face. From here on, this lady is mine to deal with, and I won't tolerate any harassment from anyone towards her. Liam said, meaning every of his words as he looked between Darvan and Stacy, his eyes giving them a warning. Darvan chuckled, getting real annoyed. Stacy picked up the business card which had fallen, wanting to mock Kasha about her taste in men, but her eyes widened when she saw the name on the card. This was Liam Amsterdam. She nudged Darvan with her fingers slowly and he looked in her direction. When she showed him the business card, his eyes almost fell off their sockets. It was the man they'd been searching for. The elusive designer was right in front of them. The founder and CEO of Lag Gallery. The man who just supported Kasha, that very man they had been desperate to meet, was Liam Amsterdam. Darvan was shocked as his arrogance faltered for a split second but was immediately replaced when a thought struck him. What's even your deal with rich men, huh? He asked, scoffing as he looked in Kasha's way, looking for popularity or what? And you think? I don't owe you an explanation, Kasha snapped, cutting him off. His words hurt her, but she had been trying to ignore him, but she couldn't anymore. We're over. What I do, what I aim at or who I meet with, is none of your business anymore. Her words only increased his anger. He too had no reason why he was angry. It was over between them, he shouldn't care, but seeing her sitting here, being all playful with Liam angered him. Over? Don't act like you didn't enjoy every moment with me, he scoffed, stepping closer, his eyes narrowing. Don't act like you don't still want me. Kasha tried her best to scoff at his words before standing and looking into his eyes. Want you? Want a guy that was never there for me? She asked unbelievably, her voice rising. All you ever cared about was yourself. And when I say it's over, dear ex, it's indeed over this time. Without waiting for a reply, she turned on her heel and stormed out, her heart pounding as she fought back the tears. Seeing her that way instantly soured Darvan's mood. Had he said more than he should have? He stepped forward, wanting to go after her, but Stacy held him back, halting his attempt. Liam, who was concerned, quickly followed behind her while calling her name. But as Kasha reached the exit, she hesitated, glancing back. The sight that greeted her was like a punch to the face. Instead of Darvan feeling guilty for the harsh things he'd said to her, he stood so close to Stacy, their interaction far too intimate for her comfort. She watched as Stacy placed a hand on Darvan's arm, leaning in and whispering something to him before kissing his cheeks afterwards. A bitter taste filled her mouth. Memories flooded her mind. Moments when she had longed for Darvan's affection, only to be met with cold indifference. She recalled the times she had gone out of her way to make him happy, to show him love, but he had never returned the favor. It had always been her, taking the initiative, trying to bridge the distance. He never reciprocated. The only time he showed interest was when it was convenient for him, when it suited his needs. She thought of the countless nights she waited for him to show up, only to be left alone, of the times she compromised her own happiness just to keep him close. And now, looking at him with Stacy, she realized how foolish she had been. He never truly cared. He never truly loved her. With a final glance, she walked away. Darvan felt uncomfortable, thinking about how Kasha could be in contact with another man and how quickly she seemed to have moved on. Liam gently pulled Kasha back, halting her steps. As she faced him, he was met with eyes glittering with tears. I thought we have some business to address, and was the purpose for your reaching out? Why? I'm sorry, please let's talk another time. She muttered while Liam gave her a reassuring smile. All right. He muttered, and she gave him small polite bow before excusing herself. Liam watched her go before sighing. His eyes went back to the cafe only to see Darvan and Stacy laughing at probably something Stacy had said. He balled his fist in anger, fighting the urge to cause a scene. Casting a last glance at the direction Kasha went, Liam went back to his car and drove directly to his gallery, not minding Stacy, who ran outside calling his name. Did Kasha approach him on purpose? Don't tell me he's gonna reject my offer because of her. He better don't. she muttered, staring as the car drove away. Back in her hotel room, Darvan's hurtful words continued to ring in Kash's ears, causing her to sigh for the umpteenth time. The fact that Darvan said she wanted him back made her angry. Now, she was more determined than ever. She needed to show him she meant every of her words when she said it was over. She stood up and began packing her things with the decision to move to a new place. A place she could start life all over again, a place she'd escape those hurtful memories and past. And the next morning, she found a cozy apartment thanks to an online advert. She called Kiara, informing her about her move, but was met with a suspicion. "Like you're going back to Darvan's place?" Kiara asked. "Wait, are you saying she's doing all this to get back with Darvan?" Kasha overheard Quinn's voice in the background, and that caused her to sigh. "Come on, girls, that's not it. I already said it's over, so why would I want to go back with him? I've wasted enough of my time on him." "So, what do you mean?" "I've rented an apartment on my own," she snapped. "Oh. Is that it?" They chorused, and she felt annoyed that her friends still didn't believe her. Why would they, when in the past, she had always gone back? As they exchanged those words, the memories came rushing back. Those times when she had swallowed her pride and put his needs above her own, only to be met with his cold neglect. The times she had begged for his attention only to watch as he turned away uninterested, as if her feelings didn't matter. She had given him everything, but he had taken them all for granted when all she did was to be close to him. To make him love her. She could still see the way he belittled her dreams as a designer, ignored her accomplishments, and made her feel small. She had bent over backward to make things work out, but it was never enough. In the end, she was left feeling like shit, like she had been chasing a ghost of a relationship that never truly existed. After the call came to an end, she signed the house documents and began to unpack her. She was grieving about her move, but deep down, she knew she was making the right choice. The apartment was quiet, the kind of quiet that invited peace rather than loneliness. She stood in the middle of the room, taking a deep breath, and let the silence fill her. She was free, but healing would take time. "From now on, I'll become successful and make sure you regret everything you did to me. To the point that at the mere sight of me, you'll wish to vanish, to disappear. And at the mention of my name, you'll tremble and bow in fear. Darvan Sinclair, I hope you're watching your back from now on." She vowed. This was her fresh start. And no matter how long it took, she would find her way forward. Kasha stood in her new sitting room, looking around as she tried to figure out where to start unpacking. The space felt fresh, filled with light pouring in from the large windows, and she couldn't help but smile at the thought of a new life. Just as she was about to start unpacking, a soft knock came through. She frowned slightly, wiping her hands on her jeans, and walked over to answer it. She hadn't expected anyone to drop by since she didn't know a soul in the neighborhood yet. But when she opened the door, she was greeted by the last person she had expected to see. "Hey!" A familiar voice called out with a grin. Kasha's jaw dropped. Standing on her doorstep, looking just as effortlessly charismatic as ever, was Liam. "Liam!" she called out, eyes wide with disbelief. "What are you doing here?" Liam's grin faltered for a second, confusion written across his face when he realized she was his new neighbor. "Wait. Kasha." He blinked rapidly, clearly just as surprised as she was. "You're the new neighbor?" he asked. "Yeah, I guess." Kasha muttered, taking in her lips, still processing the coincidence. Liam chuckled, running a hand through his hair as he looked at her. "I just came by to introduce myself to the new neighbor, and it turns out it's you." He smiled, stepping into the house, as his eyes took in the boxes that were scattered across the floor. "I'm living at the next apartment and welcome to the neighborhood," he said, turning to face her. "Thanks. I didn't expect my neighbor to be the famous Liam I know." She smiled gently. "Famous?" Liam raised an eyebrow, with a playful smirk on his face. "I guess I'll take that as a compliment," he said softly while she could only smile. He turned to look at the house again before facing her. "Seems there's a lot to do, which is going to the kitchen room and which is staying in the sitting room?" he asked, gesturing at the pile of boxes across the place. Kasha watched him as she hesitated for a moment. "I can." She didn't complete her words when he picked up one of the large boxes as if it were a book. "I think I know how best to go around it," Liam said, taking the box to the kitchen while Kasha followed behind. She didn't want to bother him, which was why she had hesitated. He was a busy man. Imagine the mighty Liam Amsterdam, in her apartment, helping her unpack. How absurd did that sound? I'm not bothered at all, okay? Besides, I'm just helping my neighbor. I'd have done it for anyone else, Liam said, seeing the expression on her face. So can you stop staring at me and let's get this done in a jiffy? He asked, and she slowly nodded, moving to help him. Liam helped Kasia carry the heavier boxes inside, and together they unpacked the essentials. As they worked, Liam began talking about the projects, the industry, and what had brought him to this quiet neighborhood. Kasia found herself enjoying his company more than she expected. Liam had always been fun, but it's been years, and he had gotten even popular, so she hadn't expected him to still be so nice. Despite his fame and success, Liam was down-to-earth and genuinely kind, always offering advice on everything from design choices to the best places to grab coffee nearby. His passion for design was infectious, and Kasia couldn't help but feel inspired just being around him. As they finished setting up the last of the furniture, Kasia stood back, looking around the room as if she'd accomplished something great, which in fact, she had. It was still a work in progress, but with Liam's help, it already felt more like home. Thank you so much, Liam, she said, wiping a bit of dust off her hands. Thanks for all of this. It would have taken days without you, she said again. It was fun, so no need thanking me, he smiled at her, brushing the hair sticking on her face to the back of her ears. She blinked rapidly and forced a smile as he did that. Well, I still owe you one, she said, thinking for a while. How about dinner? My treat. It's the least I can do for now. Dinner? Liam thought, considering it for a moment before grinning. All right, I'm in. I know a great spot not too far from here. Great. Let me quickly shower, she said, and left for her room. When done, she came back to meet Liam seated, reading through a documentary. He placed it down when she arrived, and they walked out of the house together. Darvan stood in front of his enormous wardrobe looking frustrated. He went through his hangers looking for something, anything that made sense, but found none. Each suit he took felt wrong. Either too casual or too formal for the gala he was attending tonight. His wardrobe that was once organized by Kasia now felt chaotic. She had always known how to balance his style, creating a perfect blend of elegance and uniqueness. The brooches, cufflinks, and ties she had selected for him were often the talk of the place. Now, with her gone, he felt completely lost. After days of relying on the outfits she had pre-planned, the reserves had run dry. He had even worn one of last year's suits to work earlier that week, earning a raised eyebrow from his assistant, who said, "That's not like you. I thought you had this season's wardrobe planned out." He thought about it for a long time and finally threw on a black suit. At the gala, as Darvan entered, he was immediately greeted by his friends, but instead of the usual admiration for his incomparable style, he was met with confused look. "That's an interesting choice," Mark said, eyeing his casual watch with a more confused expression. "Are you back to last season's fashion? What happened to your usual sharp sense of style?" Justin teased gently, gesturing toward his suit. "Man, why's your outfit so plain tonight, so different from the impressive clothes you used to wear?" someone from the event said when she approached him. He only forced a smile as he was speechless, but the anger within him grew. How could he explain this? After all, his wealth was no less than anyone else's in the room, not to mention that his attire was always a focal point at any event he attended. But today, if not for his handsome face, his outfit would have looked downright shabby. Everyone was suddenly looking at him in a weird way. Frederick shook his head, remembering how Darvan used to take the spotlight with his appearance on gala event in a classic double-breasted suit with satin lapels and a slim tie or bow tie. Was it at red carpet event? What about fashion show or avant-garde event? He remembered how Darvan confidently pulled off a bold, patterned suit at the summer music festival. Even his casual outfits were stylish, like the sleek black leather jacket with distressed jeans and a crisp white shirt he wore to a rooftop bar. But now, nothing made sense in Darvan's dressing style. What happened to the friend who used to dress so well and stand out with his confidence and style? Darvan smiled awkwardly, feeling the eyes of the place on him, but not in the way he was used to. The whispers followed him like shadows, as people exchanged puzzled glances. This made him feel annoyed. Stacy's smile faltered as she approached him, her eyes scanning his outfit. She had dressed gorgeously for this event, but this was boyfriend, dressed so plainly. I can't believe you came dressed like this. She grimaced, looking around, hoping none of her friends were around to witness this. Next time, let me pick something for you, okay? She added, her voice half teasing but filled with judgment. Darvan clenched his jaw, feeling embarrassed. He managed a stiff smile as he turned to face Stacy. I'll keep that in mind. He excused himself and headed for the restroom after those words. He looked at himself in the mirror, thinking about his friend's comments, and his expression grew darker and darker. Taking out his phone, he scrolled through his contacts but remembered she had blocked all his numbers. Frustrated, he logged into his social media account and searched for her name. Without thinking, he tapped on it, hoping he could tell her about her chance to come back and how he was ready to take her back if she apologized for leaving him. But the message, "You can't message this user," appeared instead. Blocked. His eyes widened. He knew she had blocked his number, but he hadn't expected her to block him on social media too. His anger flared even more. He would never forgive her, not after this. I'll approach you, make you realize you've just lost me. I'll make you beg me on your knees saying you regret leaving me, he said firmly before storming back into the gala, neglecting the eyes on him. Meanwhile, his friends were discussing about Kasha and sharing their experiences of all accounts being blocked as well. Does she mean it this time? Mark laughed, finding it funny. Stacy, who stood a distance away, walked up to them with a smirk. Maybe she must have finally come to her senses and realized she has been holding on to someone else's boyfriend. Darvan scoffed lightly at her words, his mind drifting to Kasha. He hated to admit it, but it pained him that she had blocked all the possible way to reach her. Seated at the restaurant with her colleagues was the only female cousin of Darvan, Aurora. She was chatting about work as she absent-mindedly looked around the place when a familiar face caught her eye. There, a few tables away, was Kasha talking with another man she found extremely familiar. She looked really happy with this man who wasn't her cousin. Is she cheating on my brother? She wondered lowly, taking a quick photo of them. This was going to stir things up. She never truly liked Kasha and enjoyed it when Darvan maltreated her. She smirked, sending the photo to Darvan with the message, "You won't believe who I just saw, but don't worry, I've got you covered." After that, she stood up from her seat, ignoring her colleagues' questions about where she was going. Holding a cup of coffee, she made her way toward Kasha's seat. Without hesitation, she poured the coffee on Kasha's face. Kasha gasped, and so did Liam. "Oh, Kasha. My mistake, it slipped from my..." Before she could finish, Kasha, knowing it was all an act, swiftly grabbed Liam's coffee and returned the favor. It was much worse. Kasha made sure Aurora's white outfit was soaked. "Oh, Aurora. I didn't mean to," Kasha said mockingly, grabbing a tissue as she leaned closer. "You think I'm still the old Kasha? The one who accepted all kinds of nonsense? No, honey, the person standing here now returns all favors."